Hey everybody, come on in. We'll let everybody join, and then we'll start asking questions and so on. And Brett, I see your hand raised. Let's just give it another minute or two for everybody to join, and then we'll start taking questions and stuff.
Oh, you know what? I can promote this on Facebook, so I gotta grab the link.
I think I emailed it. Well, no, you don't want people to zoom in. Just grab the Twitch link.
You want me to do the Twitch link?
Yeah.
The Twitch video. Song.
There you go. All right. Let's give it one more minute, and then we'll start. Hi everybody, I'm Joseph Goodman, and I'm having a beer because it's been a fun weekend, but a long weekend.
Dungeon called, I got a tag dungeon called Classics.
All right. All right, so I'm gonna let's see. So guys, let me give a brief introduction. I'm Joseph Goodman of Goodman Games. The title of this seminar is Ask Me Anything, so that's the whole point. You can ask me anything. I brought along as my wingman, Aldo Giazzi. If you're on the Zoom, you can see him in the little other window there. And Aldo's, we've been friends for a long time. He's a longtime D&D and RPG fan as well, but he's here to just help me monitor the chat and maybe tell some embarrassing stories if the right opportunity arises, stuff like that. He also convinced me to have a beer. It's all his fault. But anyway, he's having his wine. You guys just start asking questions, whether you want to use the Q&A or it's probably best to use chat or Q&A. Although I see here somebody's using the raise your hand function. So I will first call on Matt Robertson. I'm clicking the button, and Matt, I think you can talk now. And Matt, I think you might be muted. So maybe, how do we unmute you? Wait.
Yeah, it says mute right now. It might be him.
So Matt, we can hear you now. Go for it.
Okay, so how are you guys going to do the DCC RPG Day and the free RPG Day if the quarantine's still going on and you know, most of the comic shops are shut down?
That is a terrific question. So I'll answer the first part with DCC Day. Our plan is, Cyclops Con to some extent is almost like a practice run for what we could do in the future that could be bigger. I mean, we threw this whole thing together in 4 weeks, and it feels like it's done pretty good, and people are happy. And I think with more planning, we could probably make DCC Day even bigger, have some tournaments, do even more. So we're going to move DCC Day from May until June. We're going to print all the literature without a fixed date. So even though we'll say, hey, it's this weekend in mid-June, if stores have local circumstances, they can run it sooner or later or whatever it might be. And then we're also going to ask stores to participate online. Like a lot of stores do have streaming enabled rooms and things like that. Actually, a couple of the local stores here where I live do. So if they want to run DCC games and stream them to help drive traffic to their store or whatever, we're going to put together a list of options that will hopefully get stores involved, even if they can't, be involved in the same way they used to be. As for Free RPG Day, it's moved to July. I mean, if this thing's still going on in July, we got lots of problems. So I'm just fingers crossed that we never have to answer that question that far out. But we're thinking in broader terms and trying to think more online, if that helps at all.
You know, Joe, I got to add to it, something like this, there's been a multitude of online conventions that have just, they've happened easier and better than one could ever think. So things like Free RPG Day, which of course we want it to be going in the stores. I mean, okay, thanks to Joe, him and I did Free RPG Day and started it, and now somebody else runs it, but this is like the new norm. So they have moved it, but it's been working out great. I've done my gaming groups for games. We've done a convention last night, tonight. And yeah, it sucks not sitting down with people, but Free RPG Day has been moved. And I mean, kudos to everybody who's doing what they're doing with this right now.
Yeah, you guys have been amazing. The number of games that have been run and people that have had fun, like monitoring this on Facebook and Discord, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to take a question from Twitch.
Yeah, I see the Q&A thing too.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I get it as well.
Okay, good. So, Divine Wannabe on Twitch, how's it going, man? Says, my question is, if one wants to start publishing independent content for DCC and other Goodman Games products, how does one go about getting permission or licensing? It's easy. Just email info@goodman-games.com. The license is free, and it's really simple. There's basically one rule, which is that I have to think you did something good. I call it the quality standard, but really, I've only rejected one title ever. And then there's a couple where I try to keep it PG-13 because, as I'm sure you've seen, there's a lot of families playing the game. So I will occasionally say things like, can you put something on that woman, or whatever, depending on how the illustrations come back. But really, if it's a cool idea and it supports the system and you're supporting the community, it's cool with me. So info@goodmangames.com. Let's see. Aldo, you want to pick a question?
Well, I only see the Q&A. I see Lewis Hofer.
Okay.
I see Kyle C. Do you see those?
Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah. Kyle C says, I was playing a game at the time, but I heard a rumor. Are you folks doing Temple of Elemental Evil? Any details you care to share? I'm going to get some rum.
Joe's drinking beer. I'm drinking wine, and you're about to get rum.
All right. Well, Kyle, let me show you something, actually. Let me pull this up on my computer real quick, and I think you might like it. Give me a sec to go through my files here. What did I do with that? I have too many files. There we go. All right. Oh, yeah. Aldo, did I tell you this? I don't know if I told you this. Anyway, it should pop up on the Twitch screen in a sec.
Okay.
Yes, Kyle, we are doing Temple of Elemental Evil. And Aldo is actually the guy who helps send all the info to distributors, so I should have told him. I got to send you the solicitation. We originally were planning to release this around Christmas time, and yes, we did announce it earlier today at one of the seminars. So if you want to watch the replay of the What's New with Goodman Games seminar on Twitch, we had some of the designers actually come on to talk about it. These days, I have no idea when this is going to come out. I mean, the printers are all closed, the distributors are closed, the warehouse is closed. But the goal is Christmas time, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's going to be a 2-volume set. We think it'll probably be in the 600-page range, and it'll be the same as the other products in this line, converted from 5th edition, as well as reprints of the original, both the Temple of Elemental Evil and Village of Hamlet.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a pipeline aspect, but like you said, I do the business side for things. So
Can't hear you. Speak up.
wait, you can't hear me?
There we go.
I'm like,
That's better.
but I do the business side, like distribution, retail, all that stuff. And we can't ship right now. We can't ship new products. We're like flooded with things that we cannot get out to you. So any release schedule, nobody should believe anything right now. Not because they're lying, but because, well, we're all just, there's so much product that just can't.
Yeah, we have big plans and trying hard to get there.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have Kyle. Oh wait, sorry. Lewis says, for those of us that are aspiring to also leave our fingerprints in the RPG industry, could you rewind to your beginnings as an RPG writer and game publisher? Can you talk us through the touchstones or mile markers that seemed important to you along your own path to success? Yeah, hold on one sec. I got a lot of stuff in here. Let me see if I can find something.
You go find something. I can tell. Before I was doing this, I was a game publisher in the 90s. I published my own independent stuff as a game publisher, and I went into distribution. It's when I became friends. But quite honestly, it was getting out there, going to conventions, and we can't do that right now. And it's kind of a bump. But I went to local game conventions and big game conventions and met people, shook hands, kissed babies. And that's really, I don't know, you get to know people after so many years and they'll help you out. So
and all those,
generic answer.
Yeah, it can't be overstated how important it is to get out there and get your name out there, going to cons and stuff. I did that too in the early days. But so I'm going to show you guys some stuff from way back when. This is a binder. All right, so this just looks like a typewriter binder. This is an RPG I wrote on my parents' brother word processor when I was 12 or something. It's called Mental Powers and Machine Guns. And it was, I got into D&D, and then I've always had this desire to make my own version. Actually, this is my brother's character sheet from a long time ago. Yeah, MP and MG, that's what we called it. There's this character sheet. Anyway, I got started by just writing a lot. I just loved creating. So I started making my own adventures and stuff when I was like, I don't know, 12 or 13 or something. Anyway, I wrote this game, never got published. But then when my brother and I were in high school, we played tons of Warhammer 40,000. It was kind of our obsession for 3 or 4 years. We had this giant setup in the basement, 8 foot by 8 foot plywood tables and all the terrain and everything. And we both made our own army lists and started, statting up our own creatures and making up our own rules and buying miniatures from other companies and blah, blah, blah. And so we assembled this body of work of our own stats and stuff that we wanted to get published. And I approached, at the time, there was, it was Games Workshop, of course, but the only independent publisher was this magazine called Inquisitor, which was run by a guy out in California. I was in Georgia at the time. And it was like a, indie 40K magazine. Anyway, I submitted my stuff, and he wrote back, and he said he would publish it. I don't mean to bash on him. This is a long time ago, and I don't know what the rules were at the time. I was like 15. But he offered to publish it. He wasn't going to pay me anything. He would keep all the rights, and I didn't even get a comp copy. And I remember thinking, I may be young and inexperienced, but this does not sound like a good deal. So I decided to self-publish, and I went to this high school that had a publishing, track or whatever they're called. And so I learned how to use basic desktop publishing stuff. So what my brother and I did is I can't find a copy of number 1, but we actually self-published a magazine called The Dark Library. So this is issue 2, and then this is issue 4. And anyway, we just did our own thing. Actually, what's really funny, this issue 4, one of the contributors is a guy named Mike Merles, who you may have heard of. So I actually was his first publisher a long time ago, and I've known him for a long time, and we've crossed paths many times. But he was also a diehard 40K fan way back in the day. Anyway, this is just how I got in with self-publishing, kind of the way a lot of third-party guys are doing it right now. One thing led to another. As Aldo said, you got to go to the cons and talk to people. I went to a couple cons, met some people, eventually worked with a distributor. I eventually got hired by a company to produce this thing called Forge, because I was really into miniatures. Anyway, and then one thing led to another. But there were a lot of things before Goodman Games to get here. So I'd say the first thing you need to do is have something you want to say and just do it. Just get it out there. One of the most effective calling cards I ever saw was, there's a guy named F. Wesley Schneider. I don't know where he is now, but he worked for Paizo for many years. And actually, I feel like he was a editor on Dragon or Dungeon by the time he left. But 10 or 15 years ago, we go to cons and people drop off their cards or their samples, whatever. He actually found a artist friend, and they created an entire 12 or 16 page module. And then the resumes were the last 2 pages. But the way he was getting work was he actually completed a project and then handed out copies of it. And I remember seeing that and thinking wow, this guy can not only write, he can pull the whole thing together, knows, has perspective on the whole process. It was one of the most effective, pitches that I ever saw. So just get out there and do something, man. That's the best way to get started. And you'll hit a lot of dead ends, but just keep talking to like-minded souls.
RPG Now and Drive-Thru, they have so much free options for people to, for you to show off your stuff as well. So.
Yeah, it's effectively, I shouldn't say free, but very low barriers now to getting your stuff out there and to really showing what you can do. And that's one of the best ways to demonstrate skill that there is.
Yeah, but I still, everybody asks me, because I deal with people with marketing and promoting their games. They're like, what should I do? What's the silver bullet? And I go, conventions. And they all get mad at me. They're like, oh, I can't go, or I have something to do. And I'm like, I'm sorry, man. This is a social industry. And you go out there and you meet consumers, you meet industry people face to face. Again, they're shaking hands and kiss babies. I just need somebody on the side as well. So that is such long-term joy if you want to get in.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to answer a question here from Jack Deracourt on the Zoom chat. He says, is there any chance we could see some of the classic adventures reincarnated getting played on the Twitch channel? That is an awesome question. So we actually co-stream, there's a fellow, his name is Alex Karowski. His channel is called 20 Sides to Every Story. And he's been running Isle of Dread, which we actually stream, I think it's once or twice a week on our channel as well. So watch on Mondays. We usually post our Twitch schedule to the website. And so that one's on there. And yes, that's a great idea. We will try to get some people running the classic adventures because, I'd enjoy watching that, but I'm sure a lot of other people would too. And then Mike Ball. Hey, Mike, how's it going? He says he just got done playing Terry's Rats of Lankmar. The maps and tokens were brilliant. Any spoilers on what might be next for Roll20? Yeah, that's a great question. So we've done several, obviously, maps and tokens and so on. And actually, just in case you guys haven't seen those too, let me, like, we're living in the modern world now, man. I can, like, pull up stuff on the fly.
I'm gonna pull up all the secret stories.
There are no secret stories. What are you talking about?
What? There's no secrets anyway.
All right, I'm just going to randomly pick a piece. So this is a piece of art that Doug's working on for people to pit. I'll probably pull some more later. But yeah, anyway, Mike, the goal is actually to do Roll20 for a huge portion of our line. I think probably the next Kickstarter we're going to launch is in probably 2 or 3 weeks, and it's going to be around virtual tabletop support, including lots more maps and tokens. I'm trying to figure out the logistics of doing it because you have people doing Roll20, you have people doing Fantasy Grounds, you have people doing what I'll call various other systems or homebrews where they just basically want the JPEGs, not necessarily the official Roll20 files. So we're going to do some sort of system where we got to figure out how we actually handle the mechanics of the pledges. But ideally, you pledge for X number of modules, and then we have like a voting system or something to determine how we order the creation of them. But yeah, the goal is to get as many as possible out there, and how well the Kickstarter does and how much support there is will determine that. But I would like to do a lot. Let's see. Gabriel asks, have you ever thought about a scenario based on Robert E. Howard for DCC, Big as Dying Earth? Let's say Conan. Yeah. I've actually been declined for the Conan license. I think twice, maybe three times. Every time I go for it, Modifius is doing it now. And they're doing a good job. This is no slight against them.
Right now,
yeah. And every so often, I approach the folks at the Conan estate, and I, hey, how's that license going? You guys, is it available yet? And twice it's been open. After Mongoose had it, there was like a long silent period.
Yeah.
And there was some other time frame too. And each time I was
for board games. Somebody had it for board games.
Okay. Yeah. And every time I'm like 2 weeks too late because they're always like, oh, we just signed with somebody. So yes, I'd love to do that. Modifius is doing a great job, but someday they'll be done with the license, and when that day comes, I hope that I'm able to work with the folks who have it. It'd be awesome.
For what I can throw out there, not only does my company represent Goodman Games for the business side, the retail, we represent Modifius. So we deal with Conan stuff, and quite honestly, the Conan RPG is kind of like the diamond in the rough. It's still selling surprisingly well to consumers, and I mean, we thought it was just going to be and do okay.
Dude, Conan's amazing. Like, and
it still sells well. And actually, what the funniest thing is? The dice, the custom dice they do.
Dude, dice are awesome too. I mean, if I got it, we'd have so many dice. It would just be dice everywhere. Dice.
So we keep selling Conan dice. So if we keep selling Conan dice, Modifius is going to keep that Conan license.
They'll have it for a while, and they're doing. I mean, they did a great job on it. This is no slight on them, but I do think if you had me and Harley and Brendan and Mike and Doug and Stefan, we'd take a crack at it. And you guys can't see it, but this whole corner of my office is filled with like a 4-foot pile of Conan books. Actually, wait, let me show you that picture too. So this is like a rerun of my, of my seminar. But so I really like vintage books, and one of the things we do every year at Gen Con is we.
Are you gonna keep on a spinner rack?
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Every year at Gen Con, we basically sell a ton of used books. So one of my guilty pleasures is for 11 and a half months out of every year, I have to basically go collect all the used books that I'm going to try to resell at Gen Con. So one corner of my office is that spinner rack is like my personal spinner rack. Whenever I want a novel, my wife bought me this from like a used bookstore or something. But anyway, behind that giant pile in the corner is like all Conan books. That I'm planning to resell at Gen Con. I take the good ones for myself, and then the rest, I tell my wife, no, that pile will be gone. I'm going to sell it all at Gen Con.
I always go crazy. And there were people there taking all this old stuff going, oh, what's this? What's that? And they're buying it, and I go, this is ridiculous. I cannot believe people are still interested in grabbing these little paperbacks. But kudos to you for that.
People love it. Wait, so Aldo, we're getting feedback. Quote, Aldo's audio output on his side might need to be adjusted. He sounds quiet and sort of muffled. I just have to say, I think this is the first time in my life that anybody's described Aldo as quiet. So let's just all treasure this moment. No, what is he doing? What are you doing?
I'm getting a headset.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to plug it in because this is my laptop's. It's just generic anyway.
Okay.
My Roll20 game night, I do this. So.
All right. So then I have to also answer a question from the somebody on Twitch who asked me, do you think that I could take out Hugh in a magical mustache duel? So this is officially my quarantine mustache. And I don't know, man. Depending on how long this quarantine goes, this might get pretty impressive. We'll see. All right.
Okay, what about this?
Oh, way better. Yeah, that's good.
Oh,
There we go.
Yeah. Now I look like a fool, but that's okay.
Okay.
There you go.
No comment. All right. Let's see.
Oh, Tarzan license, somebody asked.
Why don't you pick a question, Aldo? What should we take next?
Well, it's kind of funny. I wish Steve was here, our buddy Steve. How about the Tarzan license? Seems like the next big thing to Conan. So, how many of you guys know Steve Chenault and the Trollord Game Guys?
Oh.
Yeah, I know. If you guys don't know, myself, Joe, and Steve are like the best of friends. And Steve has been trying to do the Tarzan license for the longest time. And actually, I tease him about it all the time because I'm like, this is going to be a great license. You really need to do it. And I got to tease him. He drops the ball all the time. I mean, he tries for it, and then something happens. And then anyway, but he has such great ideas. So if any of you know Steve at Trollord Games, go talk to him about the Tarzan license because he's got connections with those folks.
He does.
Yeah.
I bought his, he did that Burroughs, Art of Edgar Rice Burroughs, like 4-volume slipcase.
Yeah, the art book.
Yeah, like a year or two ago. That's awesome. I got all 4 volumes. And anyway, I love Roy Krinkle, who did a lot of those classic covers. And I was just a couple weeks ago, I think it was volume 3. I was trying to dig out the volume that had all the Roy Krinkle covers in it so I could look at them for something. All right, so
I'm going to bug him to see about why he isn't here as well. That reminds me.
Okay. Well, I mean, I technically didn't invite him, but if you want to give him the Zoom link, tell him to come on over. All right. All right, hold on. I gotta, let's see. I'm going to try to pick somebody different. Okay, Mr. Anonymous Attendee says, since you have already done X1 and X2 is coming out later, are there any plans to do more known world Mystara material? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the world of working from home. This is my son, Haven. Haven,
Hey, what's up, Haven?
say hi.
What's up?
All right, so, buddy, hold please, everybody. I'll be right back.
Oh, what? I'm supposed to take care of everything?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Say I'm working.
Oh, jeez. Well, I'm trying to get Steve from Trollord Games on everything as well. To get him to talk because he knows, again, a whole bunch of stuff about Tarzan, a whole bunch of stuff about the industry as well. So, let me look at some of these questions.
All right, thanks, Aldo. And that is why we have wingmen in these things.
Well, I can't answer all these secrets about your line.
Okay. Oh, wait, we were talking about Mystara. Yeah, so I actually, there's a ton of TSR modules that I would love to be involved in. It's already been like an honor and a privilege to even just, touch some of the stuff that Gygax and others had worked on. And it's really cool. It's one of those things that, like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years ago, I never would have dreamed that I was publishing stuff with, not just the official D&D logo, but actually, like, Keep on the Borderlands and Isle of Dread and stuff that I played as a kid. So I would just say there's a ton of TSR products I'd like to work with. It all just depends on how things go and, how long we can keep up the production cycle. And, there's just a lot of factors. But as long as this keeps going, as you guys probably saw from our TSR seminar yesterday where we talked about, our top 10, there's a lot of good stuff out there to work on, whether it's Known World or Mystara or other stuff. So we have a plan that goes roughly through the end of next year. We obviously talked about Temple of Elemental Evil today, and there'll be others coming. And it's sort of just, as we keep getting through one, we'll get on to the next one, and we'll see how far we can go.
Joe, I'm going to, as an offshoot, somebody asked the question about, obviously, D&D is the flagship. They've talked about offshoot lines. Marvel Superheroes, Star Frontiers, you'll see this. But, I've always asked them about Top Secret and Boot Hill and, all that other stuff. So I'm going to ask you, like I'm an interviewer, have you ever talked to them about other lines that they've owned? If you have that connection with them, forget the D&D side. Have you ever talked to them about doing again, the planescapes, the boot hill, the top secret, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say we've had, roving conversations. I think there's, well, first of all, some of the TSR historical stuff is a little bit of the rights aren't really clear. Like you have people out there who are ex-TSR creators who feel as if they own some of it. So some of it is just kind of it's not as clear as you'd like when you're, pursuing a license. Others of it is just kind of niche, like there are definitely some diehard fans for Boot Hill, let's call it, but well, here's one of them. Yeah, I know, but I don't know if there's more than two. It's a real dedicated fan base, but it's not like westerns are a huge genre anymore. So I think part of it is just kind of, I don't know. There's a lot of core D&D modules, so to speak, that I'd rather do first. But who knows? In 3 or 4 years, when we've gone through the whole, through the TSR catalog through like 1982 or whatever, maybe we move on to some of the other stuff. I don't want to slight it. There's a lot of cool stuff. I just think in my heart of hearts, those core D&D modules are the most interesting to me.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at all this too. Again, I feel like I'm moderating. Sorry, but again, somebody just asked about Dawn Patrol, classics.
Wow.
As well. Judges Guild, obviously, the rights to the Judges Guild content.
Yeah.
As well. So.
Oh, here's a good one. Favorite tournament module for DCC.
That's you.
Yeah, I mean, I love all of them equally, of course. But I will say, the one that holds a special place in my heart is DCC number 13, Crypt of the Devil Lich. Partly because that was the first published TSR module that we'd ever done. And actually, the fellow who's leading up the conversion of Temple of Elemental Evil is Chris Doyle, who's actually also the lead designer on DCC number 13 way back when. But also, if you have a copy of DCC number 13, either physical or PDF, I actually have one. I don't have one here. I think it's down in the basement. But if you look in the very back, you'll find a picture of me and my gaming group from like 15 years ago, because we helped playtest that module before Gen Con, whatever that was, 35 or something, way back when. And I guess that one just has a special place in my heart, just because it was a great gaming group. That was back when I lived in Atlanta with a lot of my Atlanta buddies. And my friend Alan, who many of you guys may have met at Gen Con, he comes out every year. But Alan helped playtest that module too, and a lot of the Stephen Bird, if you're listening, Stephen Pelliser. My brother was involved in that playtest. It was just a really good time in my life. So probably DCC number 13 is my favorite. But there's a lot of great ones. I mean, what we've done lately with the DCC RPG rules has been awesome. Greatest Thieves of Linkmar, which we just kickstarted, is a great adventure. The Spell Duel tournaments and Funnel tournaments from a couple years ago that Harley kind of developed format for. Anyway, and I'm excited about this, online format now. There's no reason why we couldn't run a tournament and let in 1,000 people from around the world. Like, there used to be these physical constraints for Gen Con, how many tables you could get, like sort of the logistics of managing it all. But doing this con this weekend has changed my thinking, and we are talking about ways to bring a massive global tournament to you guys for, across the world, RPGs all at once. It could be really cool.
No, and it's great to reach all these people, definitely the ones who can't go to Gen Con. But quite honestly, the experience at Gen Con that you give after the tournament modules, the awards, the gong.
By the way, I don't know if you guys can see.
You out there know the gong, right?
Do you see the gong in my office? Everybody's got it. You got to have your own gong. That's where I got the idea.
Yeah, I was going to say, at my warehouse, we have his gong. We have his Gen Con. So we know it. But, I mean, that's a great experience. And obviously, this is great to get out to people as well.
By the way, I have to...
go ahead.
All those warehouse, they send me the inventory reports, and it's like, GMG 101P, and then one line is like gong. One.
Gong, yeah. Palette. Wait, what's the other one? The
obelisk. It's like obelisk. One.
Oh my God, obelisk.
Yes.
So somebody asked a question. I'm going to get to a question. I'm going to be the leader of this pact. Matt Robertson, he's asked a long time ago. He goes, for both panelists, what is your most prized RPG possession, and is there a story behind how you acquired it? Joe, for you, most prized RPG possession.
That's a hard one. I actually, I think I know the answer. And there's actually one that I don't have. So let me show you some of these.
Wow, you're going to go grab something. Wow, now I feel out of touch here.
I have too much stuff.
Well, yeah, we do have a lot.
All right, so we all have our cherished memories, and I should be showing you guys D&D stuff. I figure that's probably more appropriate, but I actually I think my most prized possessions are the original 40K releases, the original Rogue Trader, and then this chapter approved, which was the first Warhammer 40,000 supplement. And then these are top three. Those are probably number 2 and number 3. Realms of Chaos is probably my most prized. I don't know if you guys know this book. If anybody knows this book is probably the best gaming book ever published in the history of the industry. Yeah, dude, it's so good. From like pure content, it was like the Chaos Army list for 40K the first time they did it. And from a pure content perspective, it's extraordinary. I got so much usage out of this book. But then this is to some degree the model for DCC RPG. Like every page is like overwhelming amounts of art. Like this is what I went back to at a time when I was creating. I actually had this book beside me when I was deciding how to do the art for DCC RPG. It's just every page is like incredible. So that's first of all, it's just amazing. I have great memories as a kid, and I always love the look and feel of it. It's just incredible. But the other part that made this come full circle for me is that the first real gaming job I ever had was in college. After I self-published the Dark Library, what happened is I mailed a bunch of copies of my magazine to people I thought might want to advertise in it. This was back before email. And one of the guys wrote back, and he had a small miniatures company in Pennsylvania, and he basically wanted to take out an ad. And in those days, you would call people and talk to them. So he called me, and I talked to him on the phone. And it turns out that I was about to go to college, like 4 miles from his office location. So he's the guy who hired me to then do this magazine, because it was my part-time college job. I was working for him, publishing his magazine. But it turns out his name is Bob Watts, and he's been kind of a mentor to me in the industry. Yeah, and Bob has done many amazing things ever since. I believe he's now the CEO of Privateer Press, if I remember correctly.
Yes, and I actually sat with him at the Gamma Trade Show in March and had drinks with him. Didn't realize who he was, and he's like, "I'm Bob Watts," and I was like, "Dude, I know your name."
Yeah, Bob's a cool dude. He's so down to earth and so easy to hang out with. But and he did amazing things for me, guys. Like when I started the Dark Library, the first issue, which I can't find right now, was a beat up black and white thing that I remember it cost me $400 to produce because I had to front that money myself, and I saved up for it working at Six Flags over the summer. But the second issue, we have color art and like professional printing. And I was young and naive. I was 17. But what Bob actually did was he put my printing on his line of credit with the printer, which is the only way I could afford this fancy printing job. Then he called a bunch of his distributor buddies and got them to buy, they all bought like 30 copies, but it was enough that it, floated the issue. And I eventually sold like 2,000 copies of this because it started restocking. This cover art's by a fellow named Tim Burgard. Sorry, that's Appleton, by Appleton, but he was a painter for Games Workshop. But Bob knew him and convinced him to give me this art that he had lying around. It was just, Bob did a ton of things for me back in the day. But going back to my story, Bob was formerly the president of Games Workshop US. So for many years back in the day, he was in charge of Games Workshop in the US. And he told me the secret story behind this book, which was, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it basically cost some staggering amount of money to produce, and it almost bankrupted the company because it was so expensive. They rewrote it like 4 times. And like you look at this and you're like, wow, this art's incredible. And if you're on the publishing side, you're like, my God, this art's expensive. And it almost took them down. So, if you know GW, if you remember the second volume of the series, it was not nearly as cool as the first volume. And what I was told was, yeah, there's a reason, because the first one almost bankrupted them. But this book really is incredible. Probably is my most prized. And I'll tell you also, the thing that I regret the most, actually, when I was in college, I didn't have any money. And so I sold, like we all do, sold my gaming stuff and, for whatever it was, pennies on the dollar probably. And had to buy it back years later. So this is not my original copy. This is a copy I bought on eBay for way too much money a couple years ago. Same here, not my original copy, but this is also a phenomenal book, both graphically and content-wise. And then this one, I actually have to thank Jim Kitchen, if he's listening. I was looking for this for years, and you can't even find it. I don't know what their print run was, but it was so tiny. And a couple years ago, somehow I came up in conversation with Jim that I wanted a copy. And anyway, he showed up a year or two later at either Gen Con or Gary Con and just handed me a copy. So thanks again, Jim. This is in my top 3 gaming possessions. All right, that's my long-winded story. Aldo, your call.
Good. No. I'm gonna question you from the people that I've been looking at all the questions. So one person asks, what are the plans for X-Crawl? And the only thing I can say is I was checking out your convention for the weekend, and I saw Brennan running X-Crawl during one of the Twitch channels. But what are your plans farther down the road for X-Crawl right now.
And actually, let me pull up another piece of art. We X-Crawl Classics is the manuscript's complete. Brendan finished it a month or so ago, maybe. And the cover art's complete, which I'll show you here. Doug Kovacs did the cover art. It looks awesome. This will pull up on Twitch in just a sec. And guys, X-Crawl is awesome. It's one of my favorite expressions of dungeon crawling. It's everything you love about dungeon crawling. Then you also throw in, instead of monster ecology, you have the dungeon judge who actually decides where everything goes in the dungeon. And then you have this sort of game show component and all these elements of it that are just that take all the things that would normally slow down dungeon crawls and then make it just more exciting and more amped up. You have sponsorships. You have the athleticism mixed with the it's awesome. The WWF elements, the televised sports elements. I love X-Crawl, and I've been working with Brendan, who is the creator, and then Brett Brooks, many of you know, but he was actually the first publisher of X-Crawl, probably 10 or 15 years ago when he had his, he still has it, but when he was more active. Panda Head, yeah.
Panda Head, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember back in the day.
Yeah, so both Brett and Brendan have been involved in X-Crawl forever. Anyway, the plan is to kickstart it. The manuscript's done. We've been talking about some, modest changes to some of the just details and stuff, and then, coming up with a module lineup to support it and so on. But again, with this virus thing, it's hard to predict timing. But it's in editing right now. I think I saw Dak actually commenting on one of these feeds somewhere. Dak J. Ultimac, who many of you guys know, is actually the editor. So, Dak, why are you online? Get back to work. Anyway, he's working on editing it right now, and it'll be coming your way soon.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Next question for, I think, us. What would be your dream table game session, running or playing? I'm going to answer that really quick, really fast first.
Go for it. I got to think.
And I said it last night with Tomb of Horrors when you were asking me the top 10 modules. I have to tell you, local convention in the San Francisco Bay Area, DunderCon, Luke Gygax lived locally at the time. Errol Otis lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. Joe was here, myself, and I can't remember who the fifth person was, but Luke Gygax found an old copy, the original of Tomb of Horrors. He's like, well, I should run this. And he ran it for us. And I was in Tomb of Horrors with Luke Gygax running it, and we could barely get to the third room because he was telling so many stories about what his dad was thinking and his experience as a kid going, my dad was doing this, and my dad was doing that with this. And it was, as much as you, as an adventurer, you wanted to go forward and you wanted to go do things, but you're sitting there listening to Luke about the experience of this classic module and what it was. That, for me, that was my dream session that I would have never thought could have happened.
Yeah.
Earl and Luke, with Joe, of course, myself, and the random person that I can't think of right now. But I know there was a fifth person.
No, that's pretty cool. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like I've been lucky and had the chance to game with so many cool people. And, sometimes the games are big names. Other times, just running at cons, you just have a really fun group. So I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I might not have an answer for you on this session. I feel like I've been lucky so far and had a lot of cool games, and I'll try to think about.
Can I prod you?
Sure.
You've been to Gary Con, and Luke has invited me every year, and I just can't because it crosses with another trade show. But you go to Gary Con all the time. I mean, all the old school TSR people are at Gary Con. I mean, have you not sat down and gamed with any of those?
No, I mean,
Jim Ward?
I've hung out with them. You just met Haven. I have 2 young children. In my life for the last couple of years, we still don't get enough sleep. Like, there will come a time when I could leave the house for 4 days and just game, but they need to get a little older. So no, I never seem to have enough time to, I play a lot of Monopoly, but sure. I don't have enough time to do gamer games right now. My older son, Haven, he actually, they have a D&D camp at the local school district. So he went to D&D camp last summer, and he calls it Dragons and Dungeons, but he loves Dragons and Dungeons. So I think we're a year or 2 away from really getting into that, and then maybe I'll have, take him with me to cons and have more time, but just... And
then you're gonna throw down the gauntlet and go, don't you know who I am? Don't you know who he's gonna say, don't you know who my dad is?
I hope not. I hope I'm just some generic guy to him and never more than that.
Okay, so another question I'm gonna throw out to you. I'm gonna, again, lead the charge. For those of us, Lewis says, for those of us that are aspiring to also leave our fingerprints on the RPG industry, could you rewind to your beginnings as a writer and publisher and take us through the touchstones or mile markers that seemed important to you along your path to success.
Oh, I think that was where I think we answered that one.
Oh, did we? Sorry.
Oh, we gotta
My apology.
We have to like mark that one or something.
Oh yeah, I did mark it. Okay. Sorry. I do know I can add to that. And when you and I had our booths next to each other at a trade show in 2001, 2000. That's when
Gamma, or was that Origins?
Yeah, you and I met at Gamma, the Gamma trade show, which is the game manufacturers, and we had our booths next to each other. And that, to me, was hugely important for my business side of things. But
actually, let me tell the story of Aldo's secret career as an RPG designer. Some of you may have heard of a game called Battle Cattle, which actually is a great game. And I actually bought Battle Cattle on the internet in like 1998 or something. And I gave it to my brother as a birthday present years and years ago before I knew who you were. And then like 2 or 3 years later we met, I was like, oh, you're the guy I ordered that game from online. But Aldo's actually written some good games. Battle Cattle, Og, what's the other one? There's
a few, but they're not anything near what you have done.
Well, they're fun.
That was back in the 90s, but thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I deal with more of the business boring stuff that I do better with. So Joe Cirillo, he says, what is your biggest regret in the gaming industry? Any licenses that you passed up that you have regrets on? So I'm sure the first one, the second half is definitely you. The first one, maybe to both of us. But go ahead, Joe. Any licenses that you passed up that you regret on?
Actually, I think my biggest regret is I didn't pay much attention to the names or the people or the business side of it for a long time. Like I talked to, actually even talking to like Chris Doyle, he has such an amazing recollection of who wrote what from when he was, gaming back in the 80s. And he knew all the names of the designers and the artists. And I love certain things, but I didn't really, I never really appreciated who the people were as much. And then as time went on, you mentioned GaryCon. Like I'd go to GaryCon and strangely, I didn't connect all the names to the products they'd done. I just sort of learned that real time. I was like, oh, you're the dude who did that thing I loved. So I wish I just, on the one hand, I was a fan all along. I just didn't pay attention to who was doing this stuff. And I wish I'd just paid attention better. Partly to give them like the respect they probably deserve, but also just to, I think I'd have a better appreciation and maybe have even cooler products if I, had paid better attention to something other than just the content in front of me.
Well, and that's the cool part of the game industry. When you meet these famous people, these Jim Wards, these Gary Gygax, these Margaret Weiss, Tracy Hickman, all those people, they're just normal, and you wouldn't realize who they are. And you're just like, oh, you're Margaret Weiss? You're just kind of cool to hang out with and talk to. So that's this industry. As much as we as gamer geeks, as fans think that they're so famous, they don't think that about themselves. And they're so unassuming, they're just cool to hang out with, just like Luke.
Yeah.
Not that I'm name dropping, blah blah, Luke Gygax, yada yada yada. But he lived local to me. I used to see him at cons. We used to hang out and game and just chat. Normal guy. Never even had to talk to him about his dad. Nothing like that. You could just talk about normal things. So, super nice guy. Regrets in the game industry? Boy, oh boy. For me, business-wise, somebody showed me Magic the Gathering, and I go, this game is terrible. You want me to spend money to collect cards and spend more money? So that's not RPG related, but that's business. I was just like, you want me to spend money on a whole bunch of packs of cards that I don't know what's inside? That's ridiculous.
I have to admit, I never got into Magic either, and maybe I missed
We missed some financial opportunity, definitely. There,
yeah.
So I'm reading a long one from somebody too. Why did you call this Cyclops Con? That just came up.
Oh, dude, Cyclopses are awesome. I don't know, I don't know. Why not? So I've been trying to show my son actually, first I'll start with a funny story. As a dad, it's not like it comes with an instruction book. So I've been trying to show my son all the things that I think are critical to success in life, such as Bruce Lee movies, So I showed him his first Bruce Lee movie when he was in kindergarten. I got to keep my voice down. But the next day at school, he punched a kid in the face. And apparently that was my fault. apparently kids are impressionable. When you show them Bruce Lee movies, they do stuff like that. So I was also recently, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I started showing them a lot of the old classic Ray Harryhausen movies, including like Jason and the Argonauts, and I think it was, yeah, they're so good. But which one had the Cyclops? Was it Jason and the Argonauts?
Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah.
The stop motion guy just died like a week or 2 ago, actually.
Yeah. But anyway, so I was thinking about Cyclops anyway, and then I was at the Gamma Trade Show, and we were talking to this really cool dude who runs a game store down in LA called Lost Planet, I think. Anyway, because there used to be this game store there. Oh, I'm blanking on the name. For years, there was this great game and comic shop in LA called Something Planet, maybe Ninth Planet. Anyway, they went under, and I was looking at the guy's card, and I was like, isn't this the store that's been there forever? And he's like, no, they went under, but he opened his store and gave it a name that's an homage to the old store. And the guy who used to manage the old store, he actually hired, to work his store. It was just one of those cool, like, taking on the next generation and giving respect to the generation before you kind of things. Anyway, the owner of that store is really cool. We ended up chatting for a long time. And to be honest, I ripped it off from him. He's really into Cyclopses too. And he told me he was going to have a sale at his shop. And he's like, I need a name for the sale. I'm just going to call it Cyclops Sale. And I was like, that's cool. And then after, by the Gamma Trade Show started, and by the time we got to Thursday, the coronavirus was taking over America, and we were all like, what the heck's going on? So I was like, I need to do an online something. Let's just call it Cyclops Con. Anyway, that's where it came from. Cyclopses are cool.
We keep saying Gamma Trade Show. I don't know if we say it, but the Gamma Trade Show is our business-to-business trade show. So it's the boring, non-consumer. It's not Gen Con. It's not Origins. It's not any of those. It's retailers, distributors, industry people. It's in Reno, Nevada. Anyway, that's our boring business side of things.
And for those of you who don't know, Aldo's like the invisible face of Goodman Games. He handles, us and many other companies, but he handles sales of our products to distributors and, occasionally other sort of connection points as well. But if you're on the consumer side, you wouldn't necessarily know his name. But if you're a distributor, you know who Aldo is, and you call him to get your Goodman Games products. So.
Thank you. So, question, I'm going to lead you, when publishing our own personal modules, one of the hardest parts I find is finding beginning artists that don't charge a known artist commission. I'm just starting out creating content. What is a good option for artwork for beginning budget? Also, how much do we get paid if we work for you, Joseph, making modules? Hey, Joe, so I'm going to be a leading notation. How long ago was it where people as writers for writing modules were getting 25 cents a word? That was, how long ago was it? That's not anymore, right?
No. I mean, I don't think anybody pays 25 cents a word.
This was long ago. This was way back in the beginning.
Well, so
people would.
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, in the early days of TSR, as a TSR designer, you probably got. Yeah, they didn't necessarily pay by the word, but what you're expected to produce meant that you were effectively getting paid. I mean, they got good salaries. They only had to publish, I don't know, they were publishing one module every 3 to 4 months for a while there. So, it was good money as a module designer. These days, a typical, if you're starting out, Goodman Games starting out for many writers will pay 3 cents a word. For those who have a lot of experience will pay, more than that. But RPGs are generally, if you want to make money in the gaming industry, and this is terrible, but one of the running jokes is, you can make tens of dollars in the RPG sector, maybe even dozens. It's not the most lucrative side of things, but I love it, and I always have. So we do it for fun, But to answer your question about artists, actually, sorry, if you want to make money in the gaming industry, talk to Aldo, but basically publish board games. That's the it thing right now. Every 10 years or so, RPGs had a boom in the 3rd edition era, then it kind of waned, and then it was in card games for a while, then that waned, and it was back to board games, and board games have been there for 10 or 15 years now. There's ups and downs, but you'll see companies that move in and out of categories as they do better or worse.
Hey, RPGs are doing great right now.
They really
are.
Yeah.
I mean, even before this coronavirus, blah, blah, whatever words you want to say, and the whole drive-through and RPG now and the people grabbing PDFs, the hard book RPG industry has been doing incredible, actually, compared to normal for the past year or two, I would say, prior to it. Numbers, people physically buying books.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, it's been really well. So obviously Joe's been a part of that with the DCC RPG on printing 20, 100, whatever. Whatever the core book is printing at.
It just keeps.
But it's done really well.
Yeah. But to answer your question about artists, there's two sides to that. On the one hand, if you're an artist, you need to earn a living wage, you know. So I think it's reasonable for them to ask for what they need to get in order to survive. I will say the thing that's helped me a lot. I mean, I'll tell you a story. When I first met Doug Kovacs, this is like 15 years ago when I lived in Chicago, and I had met him, I think, at Origins or somewhere. We had, you know, traded business cards, and I emailed him about a publishing job, and we were trading contracts back and forth, and I noticed that his address on the contract was 1 block from where I lived in Chicago. And I wrote back and I was like, I can hand deliver this if you want. And it turns out he lived like 1 block away. So we wound up getting together to game. I think it was just I forget what we played. Maybe it was just hanging out. But I remember going to his house for the first time, and he had all these, you know, obviously art hanging on his walls. And like every picture on his wall was like, I could be like, oh yeah, I knew the name of the artist and what work it was from. It was all D&D related art. We had like the exact same taste in art. And so at least part of, and I'm not trying to say I don't pay Doug anything. That's not the point of the story. But the point of the story is that if you can connect to somebody on the content creation level, like find an artist who really appreciates the same thing as you do, and you guys are both excited to work on the same project, that goes a long way to making something great. If everybody's really involved and engaged and wants to do something awesome and is interested on the same wavelength. So while you're looking for artists, you know, if what you're trying to create is the kind of thing that gets people excited and inspired, then it's probably a really positive sign for how consumers will respond to it ultimately. And you can probably find an artist who's willing to go in with you on it. Maybe, you know, upfront less, but they get a royalty on the back end or something if you can't afford it upfront. But I'd say first focusing on making exciting, inspiring products, and I think the rest kind of follows from that.
Well, you know, I follow Brad McDevitt on Facebook. You know, I actually, Brad did some art for me back in the 90s in one of my unknown RPG game books. And then he started working for Joe. But Brad's he's always an excited guy about what he's doing for you, Joe. I mean, at least that he puts it out there on the social media stuff.
Yeah, you know, I got to give props to Brad. I consider myself reasonably well-read, but there's a handful of people in this industry that I mostly work with them, and they routinely wow me with their knowledge of certain topics. But Michael Curtis is in that boat. You know, Harley's in that boat. Brendan's in that boat. No matter how much I think I know about, you know, literature and stuff, pulp art, pulp culture, but Brad's in that boat, not just for art, but also for fiction. For a lot of horror fiction, he's so well-read. He's the guy who introduced me to Arthur Machen, Algernon Blackwood. Both those guys I've been reading more of lately. He's also the guy who introduced me to Hans Bach. I knew about Virgil Finlay and some of those Weird Tales pulp artists, but Brad has a really deep knowledge of a surprising number of subjects. He's a smart dude. Plus a great artist. I mean, also a great artist. But
all those words, I have no clue what they is. So 2 more questions. I know I'm going to keep you on time as well.
Oh, yeah.
Technically, we have 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. But have you ever personally wanted to produce a game or project that someone had to talk you out of? God, I can remember, I can think of many projects I've tried to talk you out of, but you get to answer this. Go ahead.
Alden and I have this constant dynamic where I'm always like, I run a lot of ideas by him, like, hey, do you think people would buy this, you know? And he'll be like, no, absolutely not. You know? And then half the time they work and half the time they really don't.
It's true.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, I do adventure modules, and I've been told since the beginning that, you know, adventure modules don't sell. It's like a piece of industry wisdom, but I love doing them. I've always loved doing them, and so I kind of did them anyway. And somehow we found a niche where they sell decently. But to be honest, it's hard to sell them. Like I was showing people earlier, you know, I'm going to do a hardback compilation of some of the, quote, skinny modules, because retailers hate the format of my adventure modules.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's my answer to you all the time, because I only deal with the business side, the distribution, the retail.
Yeah.
And I'm like, $9.99, 16-page adventure module. This is horrible idea, Joe. Please stop doing that.
I know.
But conventions, online, PDFs, you do great. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're going to do a hardback version of, you know, pull some modules together and 6 or 7 in a hardback compilation, which I think distributors will love much more, and probably retailers too. But yeah, there's always this push and pull between the stuff that, you know, what I love, unfortunately for the most part, has been out of print for decades. So there's this push and pull between trying to balance it all out. Wait, Aldo, I saw this one question I want to answer about Dying Earth. I was just skimming through these.
Yeah. I saw that a while back.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Jack Deracourt basically said he's beyond excited to see more Dungeon Crawl Classics Dying Earth. So, yeah, there's going to be a ton of stuff for Dying Earth. If you guys didn't already catch the What's New with Goodman Games seminar, I believe it's on the replay is at Twitch now. Go to the videos section. It was it's about an hour long from earlier today. Excuse me. But we showed off a lot of the art. Where again, I can't predict a release date because everything's shut down right now. But there's incredible art. It's going to be a box set with 3 volumes inside. And then I think we're doing, if I remember, either 6 or 7 adventure modules to go with it as part of the initial representation. But Errol Otis is working on the art. If you guys remember the D&D, again, I know I have this book back here, but the old red box or red cover edition of D&D that had the 3 wizards fighting over the magical treasures image. Remember that one? Yeah, Errol Otis did that art. He's a longtime Jack Vance fan, and that art is obviously, inspired by Jack Vance. So he's doing a lot of the covers, and he's going to do some interiors too. Anyway, it's great. Watch the What's New seminar, but there's a lot planned for DCC Diner.
So I'm sorry I have to ask and make you say it, but I didn't know, but did you announce you're doing the Diner RPG license?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what's funny is we've actually been talking about this for years. So I remember somebody was capping on us once in some online forum. He's like, those Goodman Games guys, they do these 2-hour seminars and they never actually write it down anywhere. So you have to so yeah, if you go back 2 or 3 years, we've been talking about it at the seminars, but I should probably actually do a press release or something. But yeah.
I mean, just generic. I mean, again, I didn't follow Cyclops Con that weekend, but I have represented. We have handled Pelgrane Press, who's done Diner since the dawn of time, basically. So I mean, this guy's question, I'm like, what is he asking? I have no clue what he's talking.
Yeah, maybe
about.
I forgot to tell you.
Well, it's okay. I mean, you can't remember to tell me everything, but. Diner, great stuff. Obviously, has been a seller for years and years and years through Pelgrane Press. But I'm sorry I don't know. But you said a box set, so
yeah, it's not. I give all to this thing called a solicitation, which is the packaging for the distributors. So we're probably 6 or 9 months out from that. But yeah, I got to get through stuff. But anyway, there's a lot of cool art. It's just to say it. Pelgrane and I both have non-exclusive licenses, so totally cool. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, I'm not telling you any secret, but Pelgrane hasn't published, a Dying Earth supplement or product in a very long time.
Yeah.
Once we ran out of inventory, we put it out of print. It's not available. It's not coming back. I mean, that's not any secret whatsoever. So a lot of their original stuff is going to, A, be hard to find, B, never coming back again.
Yeah.
Chances are. So.
Now, we technically have to wrap up because I can't remember what. I'm pretty sure something else is streaming right after us.
Well, it says 8 o'clock. Well, then let's get you your last question from Matt Robertson. Like a thief always pushing his luck, what is the possibility of a raffle or giveaway at the end of this seminar in honor of the first ever great Cyclops Con?
That's a great idea. I don't know what to... There's no raffle bin, though. Maybe I'll pick a random badge. You know what? We'll figure out how many badges we sold, then we'll figure out some way to generate that using dice, and then maybe we'll videotape the dice being rolled, and then we'll try to figure out, hey, who has badge number 572 or whatever we roll.
Yeah, quite honestly, Joe, if our warehouse is ever allowed to open and ship again, we could ship for free a pile of stuff.
There you go. That's a great idea.
But if you tell me when we actually can open, maybe May 1st, or May 3rd or 4th, whatever it is.
No,
so, yes.
That's a good call. And actually, just to call out, Lewis says, that's too bad. $9.99 plethora of modules is what got me into the game system. Don't worry, we will still be publishing a plethora of $9.99 modules as well. It's just also some hardbacks.
Yeah.
Hold on one sec, buddy. All right, you can probably hear the wolves howling. Out here, the way we honor the healthcare workers is we howl like wolves. All right, this is Haven. I gotta go.
How you been?
Aldo. Okay, see you guys later. Thanks, Aldo. Take it easy.
Guys, have a good night.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, hold on. This is Pierce. Come here, Pierce. You want to say hi? Come here, buddy.
Sounds.
Yeah, sounds. That's right, guys. This is Pierce.
No.
Yeah.